topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
You're listening to the ASQ podcast for a transformational approach to life and leadership, blending soul wisdom with modern insight to create outer impact. All right, here we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like we've hit our rhythm.
I think so.
We got our rhythm going.
And one thing that just I thought about is our theme is somewhat reggae based. So all love send out to the people in Jamaica right now going through some challenging times.
Good point. Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like speaking of Jamaica, there's multiple. I was looking at the weather today, and I was looking at it was multiple things going on around the world in terms of weather. Yeah. So not to diminish Jamaica. Yes, all Absolutely. Love to them.
Well, first and foremost, welcome everyone to another episode of the ASQ Podcast Live. We're looking forward to this amazing guest that we have today. Yes, so
we have a good one today. Yeah. Well, we have a good one every time, but
Absolutely.
This is a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So without further ado,
let's introduce and let's get to it. Let's get to it.
I have my cheat sheet. So our guest today is Brittany Cano. She is a registered nurse and holistic wellness coach based right here on Florida's Treasure Coast. She's the founder of Holistic Nurse Coaches, where she helps women step out of survival mode and reclaim the calm, grounded energy they've been craving. Brittany's work blends science and soul, combining nervous system regulation, IV therapy, and compassionate coaching to help women rebuild safety, self-trust, and lasting wellness from the inside out. She's passionate about guiding high-achieving women who have been running on empty to finally come home to themselves, to find peace, presence, and balance without burning out. So without further ado, welcome to the ASQ Podcast Live, Brittany Cano.
Yay!
It's so good to be here with you.
Super excited. Thank you for being with us. This is going to be a good show.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I had a clap. I still have to figure out my sounds to so that we could clap you in next time.
Yeah.
I did like the reggae tone. I was jamming.
Right? Thank you.
Yeah.
It's really nice intro.
All thanks to Omar. He found that one, and we've had it for years now. Yeah, we love it.
So, Brittany, typically when we start our conversations, we start like the first half of the conversation talking about your own journey as to how you became the person that you became. And then in the second part, we'll get into what it is that you do. So tell us about your journey in self-transformation, your journey in discovering the essence of who you are at this particular stage. Like, tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, let me take you back about 13 years ago. And I was on a hamster wheel of partying and working. That was pretty much my life. I had come to Florida from Illinois on a travel nursing assignment.
Nice.
And I had this funny idea that when I got to Florida, I would stop drinking. Little did I know that there was drinking happy hour for absolutely everything. Mm-hmm. And so I found myself just partying with my girlfriends all the time, going out. But I was also at this point where, is there more to life? There has to be more to life than just work and play. And the way that I was doing it. And I carried a lot of shame. And my friendships, we typically just kind of kept it surface. Like, we had a lot of fun together, but we didn't talk about our emotions, the things we were embarrassed about, all those things. Well, then I hit this point where I knew enough was enough, but I didn't really know how to make changes. I would try to make changes. I'd start on Monday, and I never would start on Monday. And just kept in that shame cycle until I had a friend introduce me to coaching. He would call me up. I would be driving home from night shift, and then he would ask me, Britt, what do you want with your life? What do you want? And it started to, getting me thinking, what do I want with my life? And started getting into that dream mode. Around that time, I got introduced to like Tony Robbins. And then from there, I was directly introduced to coaching, and it made such a big difference in my life. I got off the hamster wheel. I started making a lot better decisions. My friend group shifted, although my friends at the time were awesome, but I just started really finding my path. I led some mission trips to Central America. And then I shortly after that met my husband and started my business. My business was really founded in, if you want to change, you can change. And here's how you do it. Because before that, I didn't know how to make healthy habit changes. Now it seems kind of silly because it's been my life for quite a while. But at the time, I couldn't figure out how to make changes in my life, although I wanted to. And I carried so much shame. So when I started processing the shame, symptoms that I had heartburn for years since I was probably like 12 or 13. I was somebody who would pop like tons of antacids, Prilosec, Zantac. You're not supposed to take this combination together. And I didn't need it anymore once I started doing this deep healing work. And so that also really opened me up to, oh, there's something here about emotional healing, about spiritual healing.
Interesting. I like that. I have a question. I think a lot of the times when you go through these, I don't know what you call it, the word for it, like eye-opening experiences or maybe revelations, how did that, as you kind of were with your friends and whatnot, how did you shift that shame aspect? I'm curious about that because a lot of people there's a lot of shame surrounding the ways that we live our lives and the things that start to come to us and the things that surface for us. And we want to make a change, but we don't know how. And a lot of that has to do with shame, right? How did you, I know some of the coaching helped, but what was the internal work, if you don't mind sharing? I'm just curious about that.
For me, what was really huge was it was a group coaching environment. And so I was in there with kids who were like 17-year-olds, 50-year-old doctors, attorneys, people from all walks of life. And I had never been in an environment like that where everyone was open about their challenges. And then I too actually spoke about it and talked about how I was feeling, because before, for the most part, I would just try to stuff it. I'd stay busy. I'd work an extra shift. I'd go out with my friends and have fun, but I wasn't processing anything. And so to be able to be witnessed by other people and also hear people who were highly successful have these challenges, it really spoke to me, because I thought up until that point, I thought I was kind of alone in that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Which is how we often perceive that, right? That we're alone.
So, and the mind will play that trick still, right? My mind will still be like, oh, you're the only one dealing with this problem in this kind of way. But now, I know and have tools to say like, hey, that's not true. And that voice isn't the voice that I want to listen to today.
Right.
Now, what were some of the discoveries that you found about yourself that were, a new epiphany, a new perspective that you discovered about yourself while going through this, right? Because sometimes as we begin to like shed layers of our aces and things of that nature, we discover new aspects of us. Can you tell us about some of the things that you discovered about yourself?
Some of the things that I discovered was that I do have the capacity to be a leader, which I would have never thought to lead a medical mission trip or to start my own business prior to doing the deep inner work. And then once I started that work and then stepped into leadership coaching, it really opened me up to what's possible. And that's the thing, right? We don't know what's possible until we step out of our comfort zone. So that was one thing. Another thing, when I really got into mindfulness, was noticing how much I was striving and pushing myself to a point that it wasn't healthy. So that practice really helped me find balance and acceptance where I am, while still being open to growing and expanding. And then another thing, during the pandemic, I got extremely burned out. And although I had come a long way at that point, right? There's always layers in our journey.
Yeah, definitely.
I realized I was still living in survival mode in so many ways. A lot of unprocessed grief and a lot of unprocessed trauma. Like I lost my dad when I was 9, and then I was a wild teenager. And, then I just went into work and, life, and didn't ever really fully process that. So during the pandemic, I got really burned out and realized I was in survival mode. So then that took my, self journey even deeper to the nervous system regulation piece, because the mind can always tell us, we can do more, you can do more, you're not doing enough. You're falling short, but the body is so wise and intelligent. And so the symptoms were telling me, okay, there's something here to get really curious about.
Right. Let me ask you this, because I don't think I know this about you, even though we're friends, in regular life. So you were in traditional nursing for a period. And I'm assuming, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that going to this deep journey and going through the coaching and learning about yourself and having these things surface and dealing with your griefs and whatnot, put you on the trajectory of doing the type of nursing that you're doing or the practices that you're doing today. Can you talk to us about that shift? Like, what was that, aside from you wanted this mindfulness, what was that big shift that got you to change trajectories, I guess?
It was a night shift. I had a lady in her early 60s. She was a code blue. So pretty much her heart stopped beating. She came down to ICU really like literally on her last breaths. And I remember thinking, oh, she could have avoided this had she had, these tools, these lifestyle medicine tools, had she, knew how to change these habits. She could have avoided being in the hospital. She could have avoided being here dying, right? Because she was there for preventable diseases. And so many of the patients that I would work with in ICU, not all of them, but many of them were there for preventable disease.
Mhm.
And so that was when I really decided, okay, I want to get on the preventative side of this. I want to get in on a more holistic side of this. And that's really when I started my company 10 years ago.
Interesting. Okay.
So a piggyback question on that, because that's one of the things that I was writing down. This concept of spirituality, right? Because there is a certain connotation or expectation that we have when it comes to that word. But tell us about, really, from your standpoint, from someone that has worked in the medical field, that understand the science behind things. How does that translate into actual practical spirituality, and how will you define it from that practical standpoint?
So how do I work with spirituality, my practice
Mhm.
more so?
Yeah. Yeah. Because, for instance, right, when people, in particular in the medical field and the scientific field, they reject something like that, right? But it really isn't one or the other. It's almost that they're both on the same. So how do you explain it? How do you, for lack of a better term, justify it in the medical terms?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. So I do work with people from the holistic standpoint. So physical
Uh,
health, mental, emotional, social relationship work, and then spirituality. So
mhm,
spirituality is one of those things. I'll always come back to the client, always come back to the patient to see how they define it and help them
mhm,
define it. What helps you feel connected to something greater than yourself? What
mhm,
helps you feel alive and well? What helps you with your overall well-being? And so help them define it because it's going to look different for every
mhm,
person. And
mhm,
I do a lot in group settings too. So I really try to keep it in a way that people can find what resonates with them because people define spirituality in all kinds of ways. So I
mhm,
help people figure out what that is for them.
mhm.
And
Nice.
usually I start with like what helps you feel connected to something greater than yourself. And for some people it's going to be God, for some people it's going to be nature, for others it's the practices of compassion, of gratitude, of service.
Mhm.
And how do you balance that then once you kind of figure that out for your participants? What's the balance?
When I work with a client, we create a plan together with all of those areas of their well-being. So we look
Mhm.
at like what are the practices or ways of well-being that will help you for the sake of this example, like connect you to your spiritual life. And
Okay.
so for some people, it might be, okay, I haven't been to church in a long time. I'm going to start going back to church once or twice a month. For others, it's, I'm going to make sure I spend time in nature every single day. For others,
Okay.
it's, okay, I feel really connected to my spirituality when I go into deep meditation or prayer.
Mhm.
So it's
Right.
those practices that I have people, build into their life.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So as you're pouring into other people, and I mean, I've had experiences that with you, so you do amazing with it. And I
Thank
find
you.
that it's a really nice relationship. How again, as you're pouring into other people, how are you then also pouring into yourself and maintaining the balance of not one of the things that we talk about is burnout, right? So that that's not happening to you and you're staying balanced.
I've become much more aware of how I am experiencing life internally. And so I try to be really proactive to make sure I take care of my own internal and external well being. And then I also when I am starting to take things on from other people, right? Like, oh, okay, there's one thing to be empathetic, there's one thing to be compassionate, but there's another thing to really like internalize what other people are experienced to the point that it's like harmful also to myself. And I don't think it does them a service. So I try to think of that visual of like, am I in the pool with them? Because if I get in the pool with them, well, first of all, I'm not a very good swimmer. Really. And so like, it's not going to do either of us any good. Like we don't really stand a chance. Let me make sure I stay out here on the outside so I can like support them in getting out of the pool.
Gotcha.
And also just, I personally appreciate my solitude.
Yeah.
I make sure I have time for myself and really prioritize. Now I'm at a point where I do prioritize my needs first and foremost so that I can do the work that I'm doing and that I don't burn myself out.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Before we go into the next segment, I want to ask you this question because you mentioned that idea of the inner work. And you also mentioned, how you have that voice that tells you to keep going, keep going, keep going. But when you're going to your inner work, there's another voice that arises to take care of yourself and do all these things. Why is listening and differentiating those two voices so important for the personal growth, but also for creating something like you have?
Well, one of the big things when I started this work was realizing, oh, I'm not my past. I'm not all these, voices in my head or perspectives, right? I'm not even, just my body. And so that distinction can be helpful because we can get so identified with the thoughts and we can really get pulled, in one direction or the other. So to be able to give each part, I'm really big on parts work. So like give all those parts of myself space to express themselves and listen, because we don't want to shame the part that's like the inner critic either, because it has its survival, roots, and that's important. But also making sure that I have that space, right? I have, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through being out in nature, to connect with what I call my higher self or my soul, intuition, because there is so much distraction, right? There's so many other people's stories and influence and voices that we can get lost in. I can lose track of like, what is my truth?
Yeah.
So for me, it's like knowing that the inner critic's not my truth. It's there to protect me and survive. And then also knowing that that part that overly strives has its, roots in survival, and that there is a higher part of myself that like lives in peace and harmony and like a really great infinite wisdom. And so, I think it's been a process to figure that out. Yeah. But I think doing the work and getting to know ourselves is a huge part of that. The more we know ourselves and give ourselves space, all parts of ourselves space and take care of ourselves, and then we're able to.
No, awesome. And that's beautiful, because I love seeing how you so clearly differentiated the different voices, and not that they are good or bad. They serve a certain function, and we have to be able to allow them that. And that's a beautiful, beautiful response. And what I want to know next, when we come back from our commercial, is I want to get into how you listening to those internal voices, doing the deep inner work, translated into the work that you do, and also the effect that you have on that community. So please stay tuned, and we'll be right back with more Brittany after this.
You're listening to the ASQ podcast, a transformational approach to life and leadership. Too many of us chase clarity but feel scattered. What if your challenge isn't failure, but the threshold before expansion? Each month, we gather live for a transformational webinar where contraction becomes coherence. Register today and receive your Soul GPS journal. Begin your journey within. Scan the QR code or visit asqempowerment.com.
At ASQ, we need one platform to do it all: funnels, emails, forms, and automations. That's why we run our entire ecosystem on Go High Level. It is the tool that saves us time and builds real connections with our audience. We believe in it, we use it, and we recommend it. Start your free trial through our affiliate link today.
We don't just find podcast guests, we find aligned voices. That's why ASQ uses Podmatch to connect with leaders and creators worldwide. It's how we've built relationships that shape life and culture. If you want meaningful conversations, join through our affiliate link today or scan the QR code. Find your match on Podmatch.
Leaders are burning out. Teams are disengaged. Cultures are fragmenting. ASQ Empowerment transforms leadership and culture from the inside out. Our Coherence Quest bridges ancient wisdom with modern neuroscience, helping organizations align, adapt, and thrive. Start with an organizational snapshot assessment. So, visit now at asqempowerment.com and schedule your briefing today. ASQ Empowerment. Lead your life. Shape your culture. Begin within.
Welcome back. You're listening to the ASQ podcast with Dr. Jesse and Omar Ferreira, a transformational approach to life and leadership.
All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. We're here with Brittany Cano from Holistic Nurse Coaches. So, Brittany, now we talked about all the inner work that you've done. We talked about all the lessons that you've gathered from that. Tell us about how Holistic Nurse Coaches came about as you began to grow into that from personal. Now you are transcending that into impacting others people's lives and community.
There we go. Yeah. It's really evolved over the years. Initially, it really started out with a physical health approach, the nutrition, the exercise, those pillars of health. And then I really realized, we are holistic beings, and it's really going to take this holistic approach. So now really the focus is truly holistic. So big focus on mindset and mental well-being, as well as emotional regulation. I find that our mind is so powerful, and really, even if we're looking through the lens of nervous system regulation, getting out of survival mode, the brain plays a really big aspect of that. So there's, practices that I work with clients to get them out of survival mode, to get that, help them process trauma, help them activate the parasympathetic nervous system. But also we look at how is the mind creating disruption in the body. And it really can. Sometimes there's like that physical piece, but a lot of times the mind is contributing, making it even more chaotic and more, contributing to the problem. So then there's that mental fitness aspect. And we also look at nutrition. We look at exercise. We look at relationships, that work-life balance. And like we were talking about before the break, spirituality. So I work with people one-on-one, and that's a really personalized custom approach. There's some really important, I think, aspects of the work I do with people. One is mindfulness. So it's that practice of us being lovingly curious about the present moment. Yeah. Because if we don't have awareness, we're going to just continue in the same pattern, right? We first of all have to be aware what's going on, or at least start to be aware. And also mindfulness is a great practice to support us in getting out of burnout. Our topic here today was burnout, because in burnout, we're carrying so much from the past. And we're also a lot of times like what I like to call future tripping, right? We're like in the future, we're always like 5 to 20 steps ahead of ourselves. And so that practice of coming back right here, that everything is okay, even if it's not okay right now, right? It's holding space for everything. And then I work a lot with clients on self-trust. Like in the beginning, I'll have some clients like, well, what do you think? What would you do about that? And, it's like, okay, like we really do have the best answers for ourselves. As much as sometimes I think with family, I have better answers for them. I've come to learn that like, no, we all have like the best answers for ourselves if we can learn to cultivate that. So that's a big piece. And self-compassion. Self-compassion is in my book, it's a superpower. It gets us out of the shame cycle, regulates the nervous system, helps us create healthy habits. I mean, studies on self-compassion, veterans who served in Afghanistan and came back, the ones in a self-compassion practice who had one, had less PTSD symptoms and less addiction symptoms. So it's like really is a superpower, and we're with ourselves all the time. So I really support clients in befriending themselves.
Yeah. And I know there's always a pushback in our Western society when it comes to practices like mindfulness and presence, right? Because we are culturally so driven, right? to do things. Can you tell us what are the benefits from both a business standpoint and from, well, let's look at it from a family, a culture, and a business standpoint? This idea of being in present, this idea of being a holistic human being. What are the benefits of that in all those aspects of our lives, family, culture, and the work that we do?
Yeah, there's hundreds of studies now. We have our science to back up mindfulness and mindfulness-based stress reduction. So it does, it helps with communication because we get out of reaction mode, just reaction, being on automatic in our relationships or our work. And we come to a place where we can truly respond and say, okay, like this is what's coming up. This is what is going on in the mind. This is what's coming up in my body. These are the emotions. And we have that power of pause to say, okay, what's going to best support the highest good here? And so we can apply that to our work. We can apply that to in our families. We can apply that to our habits. I can say like mindfulness has been huge in helping me, kick a sugar addiction where I would joke I would give myself type 2 diabetes if I stayed on the track I was on. But it gave me the space to pause, and okay, do I need that 18th cookie or whatever it was, And so it really is a super tool. And it also helps with focus. It helps with lowering symptoms of anxiety and depression. It helps with productivity, also even safety. Because sometimes, people are just like so on automatic, flying through things, not really being present to what we're doing. And when we can truly come to be present, and there's a safety improves.
Yeah. Are you able to talk now, or do you want me to keep going?
I have a little bit of like an itchy. I know it was choking to death.
I heard you earlier.
During the break, I jetted out of the studio to get a lozenge. I don't know what it is. I have like an itchy throat.
It just came out fine.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Weird.
It's okay.
I'm afraid to talk and then start hacking and have to like leave.
It happens. Get some throat coat tea.
Yeah, I know, right? Yes, yeah.
So then let's talk about burnout now, right? Because burnout, and again, most people think that burnout just happens like at work and situations like that. But I, personally speaking, like I'm seeing that our society as a whole is burned out. It's like, I think there's so much stimulus that is taking place that is burnout. But so let's talk about burnout. And from your standpoint, how do individuals begin to recognize it and take action to minimize its effect? And also, consequently, how is that going to affect families, culture as a whole?
Yeah, I think first, like having the awareness that you are in burnout. I didn't even realize I was in burnout during the pandemic until I ended up with severe GI symptoms and in a gastroenterologist office. And so that was like, oh, this is a red flag. So it can come in physical symptoms, whether it's insomnia or whether it's chronic fatigue, whether it's GI issues or chronic ache and pain, even like inability to lose weight sometimes can be tied into that constant sympathetic dominance. It can also show up like we can't focus, we're irritable, we don't even care anymore, right? We're just like going through the motions, that kind of thing. So I think first recognizing, am I having any of that? Or am I constantly anxious? Or am I constantly distracted and irritable? And then how do we start to take care of ourselves from that standpoint? How do we get out of survival mode? I'm big on the somatic practices. So on those mind-body practices and having somebody to process it with, whether it's an individual person, a therapist, a coach, a mentor, somebody in your family that, is a really safe space, but also getting in community and bringing in more of the things that promote wellness, that bring you joy, that bring you a sense of peace, a sense of well-being, because sometimes it's all work and no play.
Yeah.
And then it does have a ripple effect. You look at parents that are burned out, right? Like you just have a shorter fuse with your family. You have, you don't have the capacity to really be present with our loved ones when we are burned out. So it also, as we start to reverse burnout and cater to our own inner needs as well, like it has a ripple effect on everybody around us. Like we're, more enjoyable to be around typically.
Yeah, totally. Can I ask you a question? Because I'm just asking the question for those people who are, that I've run into personally, who have said, yeah, it's easier said than done. Like it's easy to say these things, but this is what has to be done. Like what are the I don't know, what are the implications for those people who are experiencing these things, but don't want to give it the attention that they think it doesn't deserve? because they have to meet numbers, because they have to take care of their children or their husband. And like, what do you say to those people?
Those micro shifts are going to add up, right? First of all, there needs to be a willingness to want to change or to see a need to change. And for people to know that our identity is so tied into our reality. And so if your identity is like, I work a lot, I'm taking care of it all, which, right, there's a lot of truth to that for
Yes.
so many people listening. There is no other way. Anytime we start to step outside of that identity, it's going to feel so threatening and so scary. But just because fear shows up doesn't mean that it's actual true danger. Because like sitting here right now, we know that like, oh, if I start to not take that extra assignment, or if I start to take my lunch break, or if I started to maybe say no to that, thing at church or whatever, we can sit here right now and say, no, I'm not going to die. But to the identity of I do it all and I have to do it all and there's no other way, to say no feels like it's like an ego death.
Yes.
And so I think even just in the awareness to know that there's going to be discomfort, but that we're wired to be able to change, like our neural pathways, we can change.
Right.
And so meeting ourselves where we're at, while still incorporating those wellness practices and making it small shifts over time, right? Because sometimes we just try to take these leaps. And while I think that in some cases those leaps are amazing, a lot of times our nervous system can't get on board with that. And we will knock back down to our current identity. So like just that gradual like commitment to, all right, I'm going to create more time and space for myself.
Right. Like, and it just made me think of like, when we go into like the new year, because we're coming into the holidays right now. Right. And what we do is we set out these New Year resolutions that are like astronomical, like life-changing things. Right. And how often do those things not really happen? So if you make those small shifts and you start to do them, then they add up because you're successful at getting that one little thing done. It could be something super simple, it doesn't have to be like eliminate all carbs. It could be eliminate a little bit of carbs. It's a funny, analogy, but you know what I mean? Do you find
it really is? Yeah. I work with people on tiny habits, and like for most of us, like myself included, like it's taken me a long time to be willing to do a tiny habit because I used to set like millions of like off the wall goals, didn't accomplish them. Then I feel bad,
right.
The loop
and the shame.
Perpetuate that cycle. So
Yes.
now it's like, okay, what do I believe I can do? What am I willing to do? What do I have some buy-in? How can I make it easy on myself to do that? And how can I make it hard, maybe not to do the thing, or hard to do the thing if you're, trying to shift out of an unhealthy habit.
Right. Okay.
One of the things that, and I'm going macro now, right? One of the things that is happening right now, with the shifting in AI and the shifting in all this new technology that's emerging, is that, again, like you mentioned, a lot of us, our identity is tied up on what we do, the work that we do, the functions that we play. And now that we're seeing technology changing that paradigm as to some of us will no longer be what we do, how does a person, or how do you recommend for us to really find that identity that we are? Because eventually it is something that we will either do it willingly or we'll do it kicking and screaming. So
right. So either way it's happening.
Either way is happening, right? So how can we begin to prepare ourselves to be the beacons of everyone around us to make that transition less painful?
I think first and foremost, we really have to harness our social connections, because it's easier than ever to just only be digital. Well, yes, we can connect digital. We're doing it right now, but like really connect in your relationships, in your community. Even if you're a hermit and don't want to, there's so much value there. Like there's no way around it. And I think we're more disconnected than ever. So community is going to be so huge. And then remembering that no machine can really, replace the value of each individual person. And I think it's an opportunity for us to do deeper work with ourselves and get to know ourselves in this new era, and know that we're always reinventing ourselves. Like you guys know, you're not the same person you were 10 years ago. We've been so many different versions of ourselves. And I think probably everybody listening on your podcast, I would imagine almost everybody has at least been one other version of themselves. So if we can approach it, not from that place of fear, but just like it's inevitable that things are going to change anyway, I think, our attitude and perspective is going to go a long way too.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think we'd have a choice at that point. It's like you say, it's like you go kicking and screaming or you go willingly.
Yeah.
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 So, what lies at the end of all this work, and like what lies at the end? So, a person decides to embark on this quest, on this journey of a deeper level of understanding, of making sure that we're not burned out. What lies at the end of it? Like, what's the end game of it all?
Well, I think it continues on. I don't think there's like a final destination, but I will say that it's like I want to say like it's such a better quality of life, a deeper sense of peace, just more flow, a deeper connection to yourself to know that just truly how resilient, you are and that you can like burnout's not an end all situation, right? Like we can definitely get through it, get out of it and learn so much. I think like anybody in a state of burnout, just know that doing the work on the other side of it, you're going to gain so much wisdom, so much faith, so much like that you can also serve. We talk about, this part of like how can you serve your community? How can you, culturally make a difference? Me getting burned out was like, as much as it was sucked, it was one of like the best things for me because it made my work that much more deep, that much more impactful, made my mission that much more powerful. And so I think, as uncomfortable and unfortunate it is while you're in it, it can be the biggest blessing because it's just giving us information. Something you're doing is not working. Hey, pay attention. Let's shift to get you back in alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. And what are the benefits to organizations and businesses, right? Because this is from an individual standpoint, it could be understood, but from a business standpoint, and you work with quite a few businesses, what are the benefits for organizations and businesses taking this approach to the way that they do things?
In my opinion, a smart business, when you have good people in your organization, it makes so much sense to invest in them, invest in their well-being and retain them. They're already skilled. They're already loyal. They're already dedicated. They're already showing up. You know them. They know you. So to support your organizations in burnout prevention or, if, your employees are already in burnout, but getting them out of that, that's going to reap so much value throughout the whole entire system as opposed to like the high turnover rate. And then your people know too that you care about them. Like the organizations I go in, you can tell that the employees know that their leadership cares about them. And that's, I think what we're looking for. That's what people want nowadays. They want to know they're not just a number, that they're truly somebody who is cared about, matters to the company.
Yeah. Investing in your employees. It's like the dividends, you know what I mean? There's no number, there's no price on what you get when you invest in them, when you pour into them,
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm being very careful about my talking.
At the hospital, it would be interesting, right? There'd be different in the same hospital because I would float through all, different floors. And the cultures on each floor, each department would be so different. And it always sparked my curiosity. What is it? But the floors where there was like really strong teamwork, people were glad to be there. People just had a more, I can do, I like what I do attitude, and their numbers were better. Their patient outcomes were better. Their direct leadership, they loved their boss. They felt like their boss had their back. Their boss was, somebody who cared, that they could go to, that listened to them, and they would defend her or him and, vice versa. And it was so interesting to see like what a cultural difference, even within the same hospital system, that made.
Yeah. And there is an ROI. There is a return on investment when you do this, because it is, like you said, the retention rate, when you have to rehire people constantly, that's a big expense.
Huge.
And then when you're doing all this other stuff of retraining, that's also a big expense. So bringing practices like this into the work, there's a return of investment on the business itself, but there's also becomes stability for the community. Because people have jobs, they have places to go to, and they feel connected to the work that we do overall.
And then this, it's like the butterfly effect. This ripples outward too, right? Because if you feel this way in your job and you feel taken care of at work, then it changes, your mind shifts so that you're doing it in your immediate surroundings. Correct. You're doing it with your children, with your spouse, with your, within your society. I mean, it's just a ripple effect that I don't think people realize. Because we built a society that is so dependent on making money and profit and numbers and data, and forgetting about the humanistic side of this whole, world that we're living in, these lives that we have to live, right?
So, Brittany, thank you so much for being here. So let's
Thank
find
you for
out.
having me.
Yeah, this was great. I mean, we do this in person, but this is so great to hear. And I've been a part of your trainings and stuff, but it's so good to hear the mentality behind it. So, how do people get to work with you? How do they find you? How do they connect with you? Tell us about that.
I think the easiest way to connect with me is going to be to visit my website, because from there you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And so my website is holisticnursecoaches.com. And from there, if someone wants to set up a consult, I do a complimentary consult. We go through a holistic assessment. You can tell me everything you have going on, and then I can share with you how I can support you with everything you have going on. You can get that too on the website. So my website is probably the best place. You can find out about events and retreats and all that good stuff.
Awesome.
And I know that you have a retreat coming up. Actually, you just had one.
I just had one. Yep, we just had one. We have another one in May, a reset and recharge retreat. So that's going to be a really great one for anybody with any kind of burnout, exhaustion, workaholism, needing some time for yourself. That would be a really great retreat.
And where are you guys going this time?
We're going to be near Tulum. We're going to be in Riviera Maya. So it's close for Floridians. It's like an hour and 15-minute flight. It's just a hop over the Gulf.
Well, Brittany, we want to thank you so much for being here.
Yes,
thank you for being so kind and being so open and sharing practices that are very important for our community moving forward.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Omar. Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah,
absolutely,
no problem. Thank you so much.
All right, well, Soul Questers, we'll be right back after this brief break.
You're listening to the ASQ podcast, a transformational approach to life and leadership. Coming this December, A Soul's Quest, a transformational approach to life and leadership. A book that bridges science, wisdom, and lived experience so you can lead with coherence. Don't miss the launch. Join the waiting list today, scan the QR code, or visit asqempowerment.com.
At ASQ, we believe every creative deserves a safe space to share. That's why we use and proudly recommend Gnostic TV. It's where your content won't be silenced and your vision can flourish. Sign up through our affiliate link and be part of this Freedom Center platform. Create boldly on Gnostic TV. Across boardrooms, nonprofits, and communities, too many leaders are quietly burning out. They know what's not working, but not how to turn inertia into momentum. That's where I come in. I help leaders, fathers, and organizations move from quiet crisis into coherence, so cultures can thrive from the inside out. Book me today at asqempowerment.com and bring coherence to your next event.
Welcome back. You're listening to the ASQ podcast with Dr. Jesse and Omar Ferreira, a transformational approach to life and leadership.
All right. Well, we're back now.
Yeah, right? That was a good.
That was awesome.
I think Brittany's amazing. Just listening to her, I was like in a little bit of a meditative trance. Her voice and just the way that she comes across is very mellow and very natural. Yes.
Yeah. So this is our recap, right? So what stood out for you from our conversation with Brittany? What was some of the things that stood out for you?
Well, one thing that really stood out for me is the fact that she mentioned the voice, right? And for me, that's a huge one because that's been a constant, like having that ability to have discernment between the voices, but also not shaming that voice because it brought us to where it needed to bring us and being able to, thank you so much, appreciate it, but I'm going to take it from here, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was a big one. So it's like trusting your intuition and having that discernment. I appreciated that part because we focused on that with ASQ.
And that when she was talking about those different aspects of us, it made me think of I'm okay, you're okay. Thomas A. Harris transactional analysis and that idea of the child, the adult, and the parent, right? And that triad of understanding the discernment between the child and the parent and seeing which one situationally which one is it that you need, without shame, being applying forgiveness to yourself and those things so that you let go of the shame and that compassion to yourself. So that's one of the things when you mentioned that I thought about right away.
That was a good one. Yeah. Cause I didn't even think about that, but that, and so then of course that ties into becoming more, self-aware, right? Having greater awareness for what am I feeling right now? What is this experience? What am I getting from this experience? Being able to establish boundaries, healthy boundaries, and be okay with them without feeling that shame aspect come up,
Yeah.
And then of course, just being able to, I love the part that she talked about in the second half where she talked about the culture and, because much of my book was about that, is how when we change as individuals and as leaders, the effects that we have on the people that are working with us or that work for us is, you can't put a price tag on that. How you make people feel in the workplace. I mean, we all have to go to work. I start my book this way. We all have to go to work X amount of hours throughout your life. Let's make it enjoyable.
And you know that it's interesting because just recently I was watching an Elon Musk and Joe Rogan interview, and it was an interesting concept. And regardless of how you feel about Musk, it's something to think about. It's the fact that AI will eliminate a lot of tedious tasks that we did as humans, that we do as humans. So then the redefinition of who we are and what we do, will require a different point, a different perspective.
Yes.
And it's one that will require us to really understand those different voices in our minds.
Yeah.
Right? Be able to discriminate and say, okay, this time right now, I don't need protection. I need more exploration.
Right.
Without guilt, without shame, without those type of things. Right. So it's very interesting how all these things are aligning in our current time in terms of what the kind of work that Brittany does, the kind of work that we do, and the things that are happening in our society and how those things correlate and affect one another.
Yeah. Agreed. I think that if just to piggyback on what you're saying is just the awareness and understanding that we need to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's one thing that she mentioned too, right? And that goes back to the body keeps the score book, that all these things manifest in your body. If you're not aware of the burnout, if you're not consistently understanding stress and the effect that's staying in that long term, how it affects you, but also really, if you think about it, right, how it affects society in terms of obesity epidemics, dealing with those all the emotional and physical needs by eating food that is not convenient for us, is not good for us. So like all these things are interlayered and combined, but at the end of it all, it really starts with individual awareness to be able to recognize those
things. Always going to start with the individual. I mean, that's what we talk about all the time. And that's kind of what we derive from this conversation today, is how important it is for us to be able to be connected with ourselves. I think it's important to be just to have that connection, to take that pause, to listen to what my body is saying, and what it's saying is important, and not shame it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's it. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. We're learning as we go. So everyone, thank you so much for being here today. For more on the work that we're doing, please visit us at asqempowerment.com. That's asqempowerment.com. And we want you to always remember to lead your life,
shape your culture,
and begin within. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the ASQ podcast. Remember to lead your life, shape your culture, begin within. Visit us at asqempowerment.com and join the movement.